Welcome to another episode of Until It's Done, a devoted podcast. I'm your host, Dana Lynn Kay, and I'm here today with a good friend of mine. I consider her a friend now because we did an event in Delray together. Her name is Same Barone, and you are a dietitian and a health coach, correct? Mm-hmm. A nutrition coach.
Yes.
And she invited me to present devotion to in Delray to a group
our support group meeting for our bariatric program at Delray Medical Center.
Yes. So I was so flattered that you had reached out saying that you love devotion and you wanted me to present the products. We ended up after the event chatting in the parking lot for so long that I had such a great time. I'm like, oh my God, I could totally hang out with this lady. Like, she's so cool. She's so fun. And then when I started my podcast, I had said to you, you have to come on the podcast. We had such a fun conversation. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Okay. So first of all, give us a little background on you and how you got here.
It's been quite a journey. In March, at the end of March, actually, will be my 17-year surgery. So I had gastric bypass surgery in 2007. I was very near to 400 pounds, coming up to my 25th birthday, and just miserable, you know. I didn't know what I was doing with myself. I had no direction, no, sense of anything. I had battled my weight my entire life. I always joke that I came out of the womb on a diet, and struggled forever. And it got to the point where it was a problem. And, I had a couple sort of light bulb moments. And to make a very long story short, was, introduced to bariatric surgery. And at first I was very hesitant because, I'm going to do it on my own and I don't need no surgery to, help me lose weight. And the more I learned about it, then I knew I had to do it. So I had gastric bypass surgery. At the time, I had a communications degree, but I was working in retail. And like I said, had no direction or anything. And it was really within the first 3 to 4 years after surgery, I started getting very interested in the science of nutrition and how food affects the body. I knew, you learn real quick after surgery that if you are not taking care of yourself, that this is not an end game. Surgery is not magic. And so I started doing my own research, and looking into things and everything. And people would come to me and ask me for advice about how to lose weight and stuff. And I just happened to be driving in the car one day and a commercial came on the radio for the dietetics program at a local university. And it kind of hit me. And I was like, that.
Yeah.
So I started from scratch, went back to school and, finished my degree and passed my RD exam. And within a month, I think I interviewed at Delray. I was hired as a regular clinical dietitian, but literally the first month that I was working there, I met a surgeon who had done a fellowship in bariatrics and had just moved down here and wanted to start a bariatric program. And I was like, take me with you because I'm ready. Let's do this. So together, with a whole bunch of other help, we have built that bariatric program at Delray Medical Center. It's been an incredible experience. So within the last couple of years, I really felt called to expand my reach and to really be able to help more people. And, I sort of found the avenue of a virtual nutrition practice. So the beginning of last year, I started that and I've been going strong ever since.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's so satisfying when you're helping people and you're seeing them change, that their lives changing before your eyes, especially with bariatric surgery. I mean, people are they're losing weight. I'm sure their personalities are changing. They're coming alive. And then you're playing a big role in their life, guiding them along their journey to help educate them. Because a lot of people, they're changing their entire lifestyle.
Yes.
So
sometimes unbeknownst to them,
right?
A lot of people, you really don't get it until you're in it.
Yeah.
Like I said, you find out real quickly after surgery that, okay, I really have to stay on top of things because, it's a tool like anything else. And it is, unfortunately, very easy to regain weight over time.
Right.
So, it is. If you're not really changing those everyday habits, then you can wind up with the same problems 2 years, 3 years down the road.
Right. Here, make sure you're definitely, you're right in the mic so you don't go in and out. Okay, do you find that it is because you're working, because there are nutritionists and dietitians who work with bariatric patients, but they've never been through the surgery themselves. Mm-hmm. Do you find that it's easier for them to connect with you and to work with you because you've also experienced what they're going through?
I have been told that.
Okay.
I don't want to assume anything.
Right.
But yeah, people tell me that all the time. And I get it because when I was going through it, I think there's this perception for some reason that if somebody's a dietitian, it's going to be some, tiny little thin person that, has never struggled with weight before in their lives.
Yeah.
I had the same perception. And when I was going through my experience, every person that I talked to that was talking to me about nutrition and about food, I didn't really feel like they got it, Mm-hmm. So that's what I love so much about, working not even just with bariatric patients, but, anybody is that anyone who has struggled with weight before, I get it, I can relate. And so I love kind of meeting people where they're at because I know I've lived it. I've walked in those shoes.
Right.
And people definitely tell me that, I like to tell them up front that I had the surgery. Mm-hmm. It's hard. I don't want to, make it about me. But I like them to know that right away. And they do tell me like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for telling me that. That's amazing. And I'm glad. I feel like I can, trust you a little more. So it's nice.
For some people, it is a lot of times when you feel like the person has already gone through, they understand, they're not asking you to do something that they wouldn't do themselves. Like, I used to compete in bodybuilding. I liked it if I was working with a coach who also had competed because then it's not like they're putting me through hell. And I'm like, You've never even done this before. Like what, So sometimes to hear that somebody, when somebody says like, I get it, it's more, you're like, no, I really do get it. Like I've been there, I've done this. There's a lot of emotions. Correct. Ugh. Because this is not a physical change. Yes, the physical change, but it starts mental. It's right. It's starting
100%.
Okay. And so do you also work with the mindset with going through, a big weight loss transformation like this? Is that a piece of the puzzle or is it like a whole team that works with the patient?
Absolutely. So all of the above. We definitely encourage mental health counseling. They have to do a mental health evaluation in order to be qualified, for surgery or cleared for surgery, I should say. Mm-hmm. And our whole team is very supportive of therapy because, again, until you're really going through it, people don't even understand the depth of the connection between here and here, your belly and your mind. Because people sit across from me all the time and say like, oh no, I just, I really like to eat and, just kind of, or COVID happened or this happened. Things kind of got away from me and, I just eat too much or I eat too much at night or I don't eat all day long or they have all these like reasons why in their heads, they believe that they've gotten to this point. And if you mention the connection between the mind and the body, they get sometimes very defensive because they're not really even ready to accept that there is a deeper connection there. I think there's a big difference between just, 15, 20 pounds overweight and when we're working in bariatrics and with the disease of obesity and people are 80, 100 plus pounds overweight. I personally believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but I personally believe that we don't get to be 100 pounds or more overweight, without having some sort of attachment to food that goes way deeper than I just like to eat.
Oh,
you know?
absolutely. Oh, right. No, yes, and then sometimes I used to think, because there's a lot of misunderstanding with obesity and sometimes I would think, well, are people just not educated on nutrition? Is that a big problem? Because I've had my mom on the podcast before, and I was raised with a mother who made sure, she would let me know, like, this is a portion, and like she was always trying to let me know, because I'd say, Mom, I need another sandwich. And she'd say, one sandwich is enough, sweetie. And I'd be like, huh? Like, because I was a volume eater, and I've been clear about that for years. I'm a volume eater. For some reason, I always wanted like big portions. I always wanted seconds or thirds, it like food excited me. I had my own struggles where I had food addiction and I was raised by a mother, though, that along the way, even though I did struggle with wanting volume and all of that, at least, she was putting like a piece of salmon and salad and, the amount of carbohydrate I should eat, she would put like a small baked potato, and she would encourage not going crazy with butter. Like, she was always trying to be like, okay, this is what our meal, really setting the tone for like healthy, balanced meals. So then as I grew up and I made my own decisions, I was educated. Now I would then meet people along the way and, say now, doing what I do, and I would ask them like, well, how did you eat growing up? It's like their parents didn't teach them nutrition, and they didn't even have fruit in the house, or it was a lot of just processed junk because their parents didn't understand. They would go to the grocery store and they would just, buy Pop-Tarts because it was easy, and buy Eggos because it was, and not actually, make things at home from scratch or fresh. What do you hear as far as, do you get a mixture of people who, because I rarely do hear of somebody who was brought up with, nutrition as like a priority. Yeah. Right? Is that?
Oh yeah. There are so many levels to the understanding of nutrition. And, part of that is nutrition is a science. So it's ever evolving, just like, the medical field,
Yep.
And so, I'm sure, as you know, because we are the same age, so we lived through that, like, fat-free everything, and fat was the devil.
And there was like all the different ones, like Weight Watchers and Atkins, and
Yeah. So even if people thought that they were being mindful of nutrition, it maybe wasn't even the best avenue for them. Like I said, my mom also was very healthy. She claims that when she was younger that she had a weight problem, but my brothers and I have never seen any photographic evidence of this.
Okay.
And we joke with her all the time, and I'm like, when, Mom, when? Because she is very tiny.
Yeah.
But she was always healthy in a sense that she was always very active, and she did cook a lot. So we really didn't have like tons of snacks. Now I have two older brothers. So when they were still in the house, they had a lot of, things. And my dad, has always been a beanpole, but he loves his chocolate. So that was always there. And, I used to sneak food all the time from the kitchen and everything. But for the most part, my mom did, give me a very good foundation.
Okay. So that's interesting. So where do you think some of you, like by the time that you hit your peak weight before you had surgery, what was your, what was your, like, the reasons? Was it emotional for you with food? Like, how did you, if you weren't in a family where, it sounds like your parents were not obese.
No.
Okay. So for you, where was the struggle, or where did you go differently from the way that your parents, because this is interesting to me. Like, how,
Well, we have a huge family.
Okay.
My dad is one of 11.
Oh, wow.
And my grandparents were always heavy.
Okay.
So I think, genetics definitely plays a role, just not my direct parents. I have, like I said, two older brothers, and my oldest brother has struggled with weight throughout his life also. But The middle child has always been, he's a surfer. He's like a, kind of tall beanpole, never had an issue.
Oh, wow.
And, my other brother and I just, I guess, drew the short straw of the family and, ended up with that. So I think genetics does play a role, but to an extent, I always, when I was over other people's houses, friends' houses and stuff, you're still exposed to tons of other junk food, school, there are plenty of ways to find those attachments. And like I said, I honestly don't ever remember a time in my life where I wasn't hyper aware of the size of my body.
Okay.
And the fact that I was bigger than I was supposed to be. I can remember being in middle school, going to Weight Watchers meetings. And my mom took me to some, it was a hospital in Tamarack at the time where they had a, childhood obesity program or something. And we would walk around the hospital for exercise. But I was mortified.
Yeah.
I felt like we were on display, walking around and everything. And so bullying, all of those factors kind of build up over the years. And I don't know why. I don't know why I have never really felt, or in the past have struggled with not feeling like I was good enough or pretty enough or thin enough or, all the enoughs that we all go through. And I struggled. I was on Prozac when I was in middle school because I was very depressed. And so I went through periods of time. I went to a high school that was not where everyone from my middle school went to. So I wanted a fresh start. And I did this whole diet and lost 80 pounds when I was in 8th grade. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. So when I started high school, I was looking at pictures now. I'm like, holy cow, I was what I would consider thin. But at the time, I still felt like I needed to lose 25 more pounds. I still was
never enough.
Yeah, exactly. So it just builds over time. And then, the regular high school stuff, boys, rejection, and, all of those things. And I just went through a really rough time in high school and started gaining weight again and not caring and drinking. And I went to Florida State. Right out of high school, which, I think most people gain, they call it the freshman 15. I was the freshman 150.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Gained a lot of weight, just partying all the time. And because it's an escape.
Right. So that's what I was getting. I was
Right.
thinking okay, so now was food more of the comfort to those feelings and
Right.
yes. And then you're in college and you're having a good time and you want to fit in and you want to have fun and okay.
Yeah. Except it just ends up making you feel
Worse
and invisible. I always felt, people never, you're looking me directly in the eye right now.
Yeah.
And sometimes I even feel, not that I feel weird about you doing that, but I get okay, this is how you're supposed to communicate with people.
Right.
Because for so long, I always felt like people just kind of looked
past
through
you.
me.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because it was the bigger my body got, the more invisible that I felt.
Wow.
And so, it was just self-soothing and coping and a lot of food and a lot of alcohol. And, that just built over time. And all alcohol does is feed depression as well when you're drinking heavily. And so,
And were you getting a lot of health problems too? Did you have any, usually they, as things will start coming on the more your weight goes up. Did you have any of those things happening?
Thankfully, no. But when I, nothing officially diagnosed, but when I went through the process of preparing for surgery, they told me, I was well on my way to all of those things. So it was good that I was doing that. When I was, I think 20, I was maybe in my second or third year at Florida State, but I tore my ACL and the surgeon was like, there's no point in doing surgery because you're just going to have to lose weight. Your knee cannot support that, And so that was something that, no is not diabetes or hypertension or anything, but that was something big that I was not able to fix at the time, and now have severe arthritis in my knee because I never did get
Sure.
it fixed. But,
no, there are things that are like where, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's women trying to have babies or start families and they're told they can't. I mean, I've heard a lot of different stories where it's like they have these moments where they're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like I was just told I can't do something or that, I mean, with your knee, it's like, okay, that's an important body part right there. And to be told like your knee's not gonna be able to support your body or like they won't fix it with surgery. I mean, those are like pivot moments where it's like, it just hits you and like, oh, okay. Right. So, okay. So fast forward now, I mean, now but this is amazing. Like hearing your background, it's like, I mean, no wonder why you're passionate now about what you're doing because you can relate to your clients and to the people who come to you. And when they are bringing their emotions, you're like, okay, like I understand what you're going through because you've certainly, traveled, that road. So the process I saw on your Instagram page, there's something you're doing, you've a thing that goes with your program, what are you calling it? It's
the 7 core principles, or what I believe are the 7 core principles of that lifelong health and weight maintenance.
Okay.
So just like when you're asking me before, if I integrate mindset and everything into it, absolutely. Because yes, it's very important what we're putting into our bodies, but it's also very important of how we talk to ourselves, how we set ourselves up for success. We have to create an environment around us that will support the us that we want to be.
right.
And so, when I'm working with someone, I'm always having those kind of things. Now, I didn't, just wake up and be like, okay, this is how you do it. This is how you live. Like I said, it blows my mind that March will be 17 years from my
amazing.
Surgery.
Yeah.
It's
amazing.
It's all, I believe it is, all God, and he has led me through this entire experience because this is what I'm called to do.
Yeah.
But it's been through that personal journey with the professional knowledge and experience that when I started my business, it was like, okay, I was already doing all of those 7 things and paying attention to all of those 7 things, but I never really put it all together to, I was like, okay, how can I package this to help other people and make it as simple as possible? And so, it's not like okay, we're going to work together and we're going to start with number 1 or whatever. It's just the 7 aspects, which involve our sleep. It involves, our hydration, our identifying our priorities and our identity, the mindset, all of those pieces, putting them all together so that we're setting people up for success. I tell my clients all the time, my brain is always on the long term.
Yes.
Because that to me is our problem. We're just a society that is geared towards instant gratification. And
as though it's a quick fix.
Right. And it just doesn't happen. That's not the way that it works. You didn't get to be in this situation, or at this weight overnight, and it's not going to come off overnight. You can go on an extreme diet and lose a bunch of weight really quickly, but those temporary diets are going to give you temporary results. We want to look for the long term and how to really just, make you a healthier, better person over time so that when you do reach whatever that weight is or size is or that happy place where you're at, you're able to maintain it because now it's just your life. It's not, you didn't go on a diet.
Those temporary diets are what probably create a lot of people to gain even more and more and more and more weight than they would have if they didn't quit trying to do all of these, fast money making type of diets. I mean, that's what they are. They're just schemes somebody else came up with, to sell a plan, to sell products. They're not, that's why, with devotion, it's like, I always say, this is a lifestyle product. This is not, they'll say, oh, do you have a plan? Do you have a diet? Do you have a whatever? It's like, no, this is not, this is a lifestyle. I talk about lifestyle. I preach lifestyle. These are the things that I do. And I'm never on when I talk about diet, I hate that. I hate that there's not another word meaning what do I consume? But I'm not nothing is out of my I don't say, oh, I don't eat this, I don't eat that, I don't eat this. No, there are things that I eat that I prioritize, and then the rest, trickles in, when it needs to trickle in. But, and it's crazy because like now, I mean, you're 17 years from your surgery, and I've been at this a long, long time. And to us, those 7 things now sounds so, like also when you're saying, you're like, okay, sleep and hydration, all these things. But like, I kind of take it for granted that I'm like, that's just like the way that I live my life. I prioritize movement and hydration and, rest and the mental rest and like all the things that we need to keep going. And that those little tiny things that are adding up to create the big results.
Right.
And, we kind of take those things for granted. But yeah, with clients, a lot of times I'm sure you're like realizing like these people are not even right.
Especially like starting with my own business. It's been a learning experience for me as a business owner, because I think in the beginning you're just so excited you want to help everybody, and, no matter what they're going through or where their mindset is or what they're thinking, I'm like, I can help you. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's work together. And I've really had to, take a step back and say, I'm not for everyone, because I don't want to work with someone who is not on the same page as me as far as, understanding and setting up that lifestyle, because, dietitians always joke that everybody just wants like a meal plan, well, can you give me a meal plan? And it's like, yeah, sure. I can spend a week, putting together a meal plan, a piece of paper for you to say like, okay, Monday through Saturday or Monday through Sunday, here's what you're going to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But how long are you really going to follow that? What is that doing for you? Because when you come off of that meal plan,
what did you learn?
You have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not just about the food.
Right.
It's all of those pieces together. So my true passion is the education, is teaching people what I've learned, because, I could be right back to where I started if I really don't pay attention to all of those things. Right. And I know, like, I watch shows sometimes like My 600-Pound Life and everything. And everybody talks about, in bariatric world, especially, that show and stuff. And I find it very difficult to watch because it breaks my heart. And I know that if I, kind of let it all go, that I could be right back there in the blink of an eye. So, I really like to get to know people and decide together, this is what we're going to do. And I am the right coach for you because I know you're ready to go. Your mindset is where it needs to be. You're hungry for that education, that knowledge. And, you're not trying to just lose 20 pounds in 5 minutes. You know that you need to change your life. And that's what I'm, ready to do.
The wild part is like when you're saying like, I know I could be there. It's like, I've watched those shows before and I could be there. I could be there. And I used to say when people, especially with devotion and people following, we have a really big bariatric, customer base. And they'll say, did you have the surgery? Did you have the surgery? And I did not have surgery. I struggled, and I've done a podcast on even my struggle. But the thing is like, I never got to this point of the surgery, although I could have, because my mindset started kicking in because I ended up getting help before I got to that point. I got very fortunate that I hit rock bottom, and I went, because I gained 30 pounds in 1 month after I went through like really big traumas in my life. And I was hospitalized in a place actually called Renfrew Center. And there was overeaters. And so I was there for 30 days. So I believe that going to Renfrew is what kept me from going down the path of obesity, because I learned the mental game at Renfrew, meaning the fact that it's mental. It wasn't about the food, because that's the first thing that they said when I was hospitalized. They were like, Dana, it's not about the food. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, it's about the food. I love food. I love volume, because I now, even at this stage now I went when I was 21, I was in Renfrew. I'm going to be 44 this year. Even now, every single day of my life, I know that there's a fork in the road every single day, and I could, it's funny because like I'll joke with my mom, and I'll be like, I really could just like go like get Chinese takeout, and I could just sit on the couch and I could just eat Chinese, and I'm just so tired, and so or I can make a big salad, and I'm gonna walk the dog.
Love your big ass
you know
salads.
what yes, like I'm obsessed with my big, but like every day we have where we could go that way and we can make our decisions, or we can go that way. And it's like people think because they look at somebody who's maybe gotten all the weight off or they're super fit, it's like, I have the same choices as you every day.
100%.
And I choose to go get in that workout, and I choose to not go through a drive-through and prepare my food at home. And but what separates, say, me from you is that every day I am choosing. There are times when I'll say, you know what, I just want a big bowl of popcorn and I'm going to do it. Fine. But because my percentage is lower than somebody else. But if you just say, I don't feel like the gym. I don't feel like it. Oh, I'm just going to go to the drive-thru. I'm going to order a ton of stuff I shouldn't be. Well, it's because it's like, well, those decisions keep adding up in that direction. And then my decisions keep adding up in that direction. But the thing is what I did with my goals and my fitness, it's possible for everybody. It's just about the decisions that you make every day. You know, I mean,
absolutely. This is why I love you. Like, that's exactly what drew me to you, because I just happened to find, be on TikTok when I went on TikTok.
Yeah.
And, came across all these bariatric people using this protein powder that they would not stop talking about. And I was like, oh, come on. I've been doing this for so many years. I've tried every protein powder. They all taste the same. Like, there's no way. And, I just kept seeing it. So I went to your page and I just fell in love with your spirit, because like you were saying before, asking me if I feel that connection between my patients makes a difference because I've been through this. But surgery or not, you get it.
I get it. I get it. Yeah.
Just because you didn't have surgery doesn't mean that I don't feel a strong connection with you, because that's why I wanted to talk to my patients. Like, we have that same sort of trust, because we know, and you're exactly right. It's all about choices. Everyone has the same choices. And, we can get into all the different, people talk about eating healthy is more expensive and, having trainers and yada, yada. But at the base level, we all have choices.
Yes.
And, that it doesn't just go away. We don't just get fixed one day. That's, another reason why I don't focus on a number on a scale. I focus on the lifestyle habits and behaviors. And over time, you will get to that number. That's kind of the happy byproduct of just living a healthy lifestyle, is you will get there. But we're not focused on that number, because then it all becomes about that number. And nobody hits, say, 150 pounds and never moves from 150 pounds. We fluctuate all the time. We go through different seasons of life all the time where, it's harder than the last season. And so, sometimes you might be in a season where you're really on fire and you're like, it's not difficult to make those good choices. Yep. And then there's other days where it's literally a minute by minute struggle. And, I have found myself standing in the kitchen looking at things, and I don't bring anything that I would consider, I hate to use like good and bad as words to describe food, but I don't bring like chips or cookies or, the overly processed foods into my house, because I know there's actually an old OA saying that if an open bag is an empty bag.
Yep.
And that is 100% true in my life. So I don't bring that stuff in, but a binge is a binge no matter what you're eating. So I have been, where from the couch to the kitchen, back and forth, every single commercial break of whatever, and just standing there like feeling, okay, I know I'm not hungry. I know I don't need anything, but I need to have something. And what do I do? Yeah. And those are critical moments. And yeah, absolutely. We're not going to win that battle every time. But like you were saying, the ratio, the percentage, if you're 85 to 90% of the time making the better choices, then you can enjoy food. You can, you know, because there's so many other aspects, cultural aspects. There's so, I mean, I'm Italian, so, you know, we eat for every reason. And that's okay sometimes, you know.
And I'm aware when it's happening. Like like when you said, from the couch to the pantry, it's like there are nights when Greg and I will be sitting on the couch and we're watching a Netflix and I'll be having a creamy and I want something crunchy in it, and I'll get up and I'll go put some granola in it. And granola for me it's rough. I love it and I can keep going back for more and more. And I can feel, I'll get up like 2 times, 3 times to keep putting more granola in my, and I'll know that he doesn't say anything because and like, finally I'll just be like, okay, I need to stop. Like and I'll be like, don't let me get up again for the granola. Because I can easily slip back. It's being like self-aware. And for me, it's like I have 3 kids and I have Greg, and I need to have some of that stuff in the house. It's not so sometimes that stuff that I really like is in the pantry, but it's like using that muscle that, like, Dana, remember, like, this is not it's not easy.
Grace, giving yourself a lot of grace, too, because what I'm constantly talking with people about too is when we get in that negative space and we start to beat ourselves up, all that does is push us further from where we want to go. Because it's weighing very heavily on us. The guilt, the shame, the embarrassment, the why did I do that? I wanted to be good. I wanted to be good today, and I had.
And the black and white thinking. See, I used to be an all or nothing thinker. And that's where I would be like, I was perfect all day. And then if I went off a little bit, it was like, I just screwed everything up and I may as well do this and I may as well. And then I would just end up in the pantry again, with having nuts and handfuls of granola and then making a thing. And all of a sudden I just completely, it's like, that, what is that where it's like, it's like slashing all your tires just because you got one tire. It's like I would do that all the time. I would just feel like it was, my mom and I talk about it all the time, that I used to just be this, like, it was black or white. Either I was perfect, but then that would be because I would be on these diets and I would try to be perfect on the diet. And then if I messed it up, it was like, I messed everything up and forget it. And I'm just going to enjoy myself and I'm just going to whatever. And I would feel like a failure. Rather than like, because it's like when you're on a diet, you feel like now you're expected to be perfect. And that's a lot of pressure.
Absolutely.
And then if you feel like you didn't do exactly what you were supposed to on the diet, then you failed. And then you feel like a failure. And then failure makes you feel like shitty about yourself. And then you're going down another path of, using food or, saying, the heck with it. And now let me just do whatever. I've been there a billion times. And I struggled this holiday season. It was rough for me. I ended up having a bunch of nights that ate a ton of stuff that I never would have. And I found myself mindlessly eating, doing a lot of that. Like there are times when I make decisions where I say, tonight I'm going to enjoy myself and I'm going to have this thing and I'm not going to worry about it. But then, my girls had a party for their, they were 11-year-old girls and they were doing cookie decorating. I just kept popping chips and candy and in my mouth all night long, as though it didn't even matter. And at the end of the night, I was like, ew, what the heck was that all about? But I was, but I didn't beat myself up. I was like, okay, Dana, we're going to put that behind us. And tomorrow, but I did recognize that, like, that was not necessary.
And that's what you have to do, is put it behind you, because we can't change anything about it. I call it the food hangover. There's always, I don't drink anymore, but I remember what a hangover feels like. And it kind of is the same way in a sense when it's food and when you really overdo it, especially when your belly is not used to those types of foods. And and you just feel like
it was a lot of sugar for me. It was a lot of, baked goods with all the butter and flour. I mean, I bake with devotion. Like my 99% of everything that's in my, but we had a party and we catered in some food and we had cookies and here I am eating stuff that I'm like, I never eat. That's why I love devotion, because I bake stuff all the time. Like on my way here, I took 2 banana muffins and like I knew what I put in there. There was no like oil and flour and sugar and butter. I mean, it was all banana and devotion and egg whites and,
Yes.
so it's like I don't have that same like, that weighed down feeling. Now I have a question for you. This is shifting a little bit. So in the bariatric community, a lot of times, people are always like, very fixated on protein. That's why Devotion's done so well because I've been transparent about it and I'm like, I developed the brand because I love food. I love to eat and I don't, so it's important to me. That's why I did it. But I know that in the bariatric community, what they're taught, like what patients are taught after they go through surgery is like, you have to prioritize protein.
Right.
So now I find it interesting that so many of them find it so difficult because for me, I never had problem with protein. I mean, I love protein. And then obviously because I've had Devotion, for close to a decade, like, of course I get in tons of protein. I have no issues with it. So, but I find it difficult. Why is it for your patients? Do they have a trouble with getting in protein?
Oh gosh, there's so many reasons. So, when it comes to food sources of protein, like in those, now this is really just the first 6 months to a year after surgery while the belly is still healing. And I hate to use the word growing, but it does,
Right.
As much as the patient is panicked about being able to eat more over time, we're not supposed to only eat an ounce of food at every meal for the rest of our lives. So it does, you are able to eat more over time. But I always describe it like right out of surgery, your belly is like a newborn baby belly. And so just like, when you bring a newborn home from the hospital, you don't automatically give them, a chicken breast and like French fries or something.
Okay.
So they start very slow and they start with liquid forms of protein.
Okay.
And, that's kind of how they get so attached to the protein supplements also.
Okay.
And then very, very gradually increase. Now, everybody's body is different. And everybody's bodies handles the surgery differently over time. So some people are able to eat a whole chicken breast, a month and a half, 2 months out of surgery with no problem. And then other people really struggle because it's more solid, and soft things go down easier.
Right.
So, we call them slider foods, things that are like breads or chips, pretzels, crackers, stuff like that.
Yeah.
They end up figuring out that those are easier to eat. Even like there's an actual condition that we call soft food syndrome that the patient can get stuck in because it's just easier to have yogurt or drink a protein shake than actually eat food. And so, I spend a lot of time counseling people on, but you have to start and they have to take very small bites and chew the ever-loving crap out of everything before they swallow and, pause in between. You mentioned mindful eating before. Well, most of us that go through the bariatric process are what I call inhalers. We don't know what mindful eating is. We just, we put food in our mouth and before we've even like chewed anything, we're taking another big old forkful and everything. And so it's a huge shift and a huge change. And change is hard, and so a lot of people struggle with that for a while because they'll try and you can get, I've searched for a more scientific, technical term for this, but since I had my surgery, I call it the stuck feeling. If you, don't take small enough bites or chew your food really well, it just kind of gets stuck, like at the bottom of your esophagus.
Oh, wow.
It's not even really going down into the belly because in bariatrics, we don't eat and drink at the same time. And so you don't have that fluid to kind of flush things down and it just sits there, which in a sense is a great thing because that is kind of the smack that we need to be more mindful about going slower, but it's a learning curve and it takes a lot of time and patience and everything. So that's probably the main reasons why I would say as far as food goes, aside from the fact that most people love the overly processed. If they were more of a processed food eater before surgery, those are going to be the things that they are still kind of instinctually going towards afterwards, even though we're constantly telling them to prioritize protein.
And they're more fun to eat, and they taste really good, and they're palatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. So.
Yeah. But with the liquid, like protein supplements, it's wild. There's so many things that are just kind of like, I call them like bizarre bariatric behaviors because they don't really make any scientific sense. But as patients, we know it to be true. Like plain water is probably the hardest thing to drink after surgery. You would think like water would be the easiest and most tolerated, but a lot of people have to flavor their water in some way to get it in, and stay hydrated. With protein shakes and protein supplements, depending on the texture, like some of those pre-made ones that are a little bit thicker, can be too heavy on the belly. Right. Like I said, everybody's body is different. So different people kind of struggle in different ways, but sometimes they're dealing with a lot of nausea or just they don't feel hungry. They can feel full throughout the day because any kind of fluid is filling to them. So it's hard for them to really get the shakes in. Yeah. So there's a lot of different reasons why getting the protein in can be hard. But the point is that they're continually pushing themselves to an extent to where they're progressing over time. And then once they're a year, 2 years out of surgery, then it's more normal. Now, I know, some people who years out still struggle with plain water.
I struggle with plain water.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I think
everybody's different.
I think it's boring. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh. So I just, I mean, I can, if I like force myself, but I just find plain water it's not like I want to just like keep consuming it. Like I'll drink it and I'll take sips of it, but it takes me a while. I'm not like chugging it like it's delicious or something. Yeah.
That's one thing I will say, like, I really am grateful for my mom for, because I think I see so many people struggle with soda. Yeah. And kind of getting away from juices and sodas and those really, high sugar beverages. Yes. And I'm so grateful. My mom was always a water drinker, so I just always liked awesome. Water. And thankfully,
if you enjoy water. So my mom hated water. She just liked coffee, and she tried to get her water. To this day, she'll still complain. Oh, I can't get my water in.
Oh, I think she mentioned that on the last episode.
And she can't stand it that she's a tiny bladder and she's always peeing, and then we have to plan our whole life around the fact that if she drinks water, and then we got to go on a drive, and then she's gonna have to stop to pee, and I'm like, oh my god. And then I'm always like, Mom, but you need to drink water. Like you need to get more water in, because you can tell even like your skin and. I mean, if you're not drinking enough water.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I notice it immediately in like so many areas, and I'll realize like, oh my gosh, I'm not drinking enough water. And I actually like hold more water if I'm, in my body, like I'm more bloated if I'm not getting enough fluids.
Everyone is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think throws people off too.
Yes.
That's not like, that doesn't make logical sense. Mm-hmm. Most people think like, oh, I'm going to feel bloated and like weighed down by drinking so much water, but actually it's doing the opposite. Right.
Yeah.
And
your body knows it's hydrated and it's going to let go of the other water, and it's going to keep flushing the water out. But
yeah. And I think, it's a good example actually, because a lot of people who do struggle, it's because if you're coming from a place of chronic underhydration and not, drinking enough, and then you make this conscious effort for, a few days, a week or whatever to drink more water, and then you are peeing every 5 minutes and it's annoying, and then you say the hell with it and, go back to not. And it's the inconsistency that will keep that like peeing every 5 minutes, it's never going to kind of regulate or even out. So it's just like every aspect of this process, the consistency is the key. Is to make sure that, we're kind of always consistent with what we're doing. And then over time, I pee a lot, but it's not so annoying.
Yeah, I know in the beginning it's a lot when your body's like getting used to it, and you feel like you're like, I can't get anything done. Like I'll be at the office if I'm really if I realize I'm very dehydrated, and it's like every 5 minutes, and I'll be on a Zoom and I'm like, oh, okay, excuse me, I gotta jump up a minute, and it's like, ugh. But no, all those things are important, the hydration, and then how about movement for your for your clients? Are you also, that's a hard one for some people too. Especially with sedentary jobs and things like that.
Yeah, I think, again, just the all or nothing is our big, like we're our biggest enemy. What is that saying? Because I just actually made a post about it earlier today. Like in our heads, we think I can't do it because we have these insane expectations of what movement should look like.
Yep.
Or maybe, 20 years ago when they were in better shape, they were going to CrossFit or, doing 5-mile hikes or whatever. And now they can't do that. So, they're just not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And, with anything, we have to start from somewhere. So I always encourage, any something over nothing, always. If it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, then let's start with that and just build on that. A walk. If you can't walk, there's chair exercises. There's you don't have to have a fancy gym membership or gym equipment in your house. There's a million different, YouTubes that you can pull up that have like very basic
the resources are out there. The resources are out there.
And free.
Yes. And now you're a resource for all of our listeners. So guys, follow Sam. She really is amazing. We're going to have her IG name in the captions, and she's a great person, and I'm so happy that you were on today, and maybe we'll have you on again. You're local, and it's fun to. We have so much to chat about. But thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I can't wait to try the new flavor.
Yes, and you'll have to let me know what you think about the salted caramel cone. I just gave her a couple samples. All right. Well, thank you so much. And guys, thank you for listening to another episode of Until It's Done, a Devoted podcast.